Welcome to the last Science Sunday. It's a little bit loud maybe, Justin and Jason. Welcome to the last Science Sunday of 2025. We'll be going on in 2026. There's actually January 4th, 2 weeks from now, we'll have a talk, and Scott and I will be talking about amazing science of 2025. What kind of interesting new things came out, what kind of stuff was appealing to each of us in 2025, and what kind of new science is coming around. So that'll be again at 11:15, the same time as today, 2 weeks from now. When the church has one 10 o'clock service, we don't try to compete with that. We just have our Science Sunday move back. So 11:15 on January 4th, if you're in the area. Thanks a lot for coming. I think a few more people are probably going to maneuver on in, but you never know right near the holidays what's going on with preparations and people's plans. So that's coming up January 4th. Make sure you're prepared and ready and able to come to that. 11:15 on January 4th. All right. We have a special talk. We've had talks from the Citizens Climate Lobby a few times before. Mark's given some talks, and we've had some other people give some talks, and I thought this would fit in real well, the talk today. So I'll let Mark introduce our speaker. I don't know if this stays here. Yeah. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for coming today. As many of you know, I'm a member of Citizens Climate Lobby as well as a member of this church. And I am the liaison for the Illinois 6th District, which is Sean Castan's district. But actually, I'm the co-liaison, and my co-liaison partner is Tom Rausch. And Tom has given some presentations on climate migration, and they've gone over well, and so I asked him if he would find some time to come here and share his presentation with us today. Tom's a former nuclear engineer, and I'll let him introduce himself a little bit as well. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Mark. I'd like this to be as interactive as possible. I'll allow a fair amount of time at the end, I think. But it depends. If we end up getting stuck on stuff here, that's great. More the better. I enjoy doing stuff like this, so this is my fourth time around in this topic. Now, things are migrating all over the planet right now, and I've seen people talk about what insects are doing, how plants are changing, how water life is changing. I thought, what's changing right before our eyes? And this seemed to resonate with people because it's easier to understand. I think it's things that are happening to us as we speak. So take a little bit look at the future, but mostly just things that are already happening from the perspective of the climate. Now let's see how we do here. Just a little bit about me. I'm a retired nuclear engineer. I have a second career in nuclear medicine and radiation safety, brought on by health reasons. So I managed to have two full careers, 26 and a half in the first one and almost 20 in the second. The second was patient-facing, other than I became responsible for our radioactive materials license in the state of Illinois for a high-tech nuclear medicine company. And that was fascinating. I was looking to do what was I going to do with the next chapter of my life as I was approaching retirement. I took a class on climate change science from the University of Chicago, just on a lark. I took it for credit, so I forced myself to do the homework. Got halfway through, and I had an OMG moment. I thought it was kind of interesting that we'd have Illinois would have a climate like Alabama. I thought, oh, that's great. And then once I realized what went along with that, I decided I needed to get involved. I founded Citizens Climate Lobby about 7 years ago. I love the fact that it's science-based, absolutely fiercely nonpartisan, to the detriment, some people think, but I think overall it's a very positive way of doing things. And I'm a co-leader of a green team at my church, and we're putting solar on. We just put in our payment to get in under the wire to get some of the federal rebate last week. been involved in CCL for, I'm just trying to give acknowledgments here. CCL has really been like graduate school to me, I'm sure to Mark and many others who are heavily involved. I probably spend, I don't know, half of my productive work in climate-related things. Abraham Lustgarten, he got me involved twice in a 2020 article about migration pretty much in the poorer parts of the world, and then in a book just last year on the uprooting of America, the overheating of the earth. Is very useful. And I want to thank Mark for his tutelage and how to deal with the lobby process itself. I have my own stubborn way of doing things, and that tends to be very science-based. I'm used to talking with people at a very deep technical level, and kind of like to go right through the BS and get down to brass tacks. And Mark knows how to deal with people at a level that people would deal with me at. So he's taught me a lot. Okay, everybody in the room, how often do you think about climate change? Now here's your choices. When I see something really unusual, a couple times a month, a couple times a week. There we go, that's some. A couple times a day. Or how about a couple times an hour? So we have a climate educated audience, it looks like. You've thought about this before, and that makes it easier. Okay, what I'm trying to do today, we'll start with a little science, but what I'm trying to do is give you some information that you might find useful in dealing with people that you're discussing climate science with or climate change with from a little bit different perspective. Actually, I'm actually optimistic about it for pessimistic reasons, and you'll see. That's a tease. All right, this is an interesting plot showing the darker red you see, the more the temperature has changed in degrees centigrade, but it really doesn't matter. It's a little movie. Watch the years go by. This is not some sort of political statement. This is just pure absolute temperature change. Okay, what are we seeing here? I've got another slide that shows kind of the same thing. I gave away the answer. What are we seeing? What's different? Okay, where is it warmer? Yeah. How about the southern hemisphere? But not as much. Yeah, and right, the poles are warming up faster. And just an example, the winter average temperatures in Green Bay last year, 6 degrees Fahrenheit, the average temperature. That's the daily average temperature in winter. And we have a second home in Wisconsin. That's a lot of pretty bad ice fishing, let me tell you. Hey, there are people, literally the winter season has changed in Wisconsin in the last decade, 2 decades. So why? Let's hear a couple of reasons. What are some of the obvious reasons, or what are some of the reasons you think why the northern latitudes are heating up more? More what? More industrialized? Well, what would that mean? Where would the CO2 be going? It spreads out. It diffuses around the whole planet, but they are more industrialized, so it would be warmer in general. There, yes, yeah. Hmm? Melting ice cap. Melting ice cap is definitely a factor. Mm-hmm. Land mass? Yes, land mass is a big part of it. It's actually pretty complicated. Yes, indeed, we are slowly having less reflection off the ice because there's less of it as we go north, but we're seeing effects far, far away from that ice. Polar ice reflection is one of them. More vertical mixing of atmospheric heat in the tropics. The warmer the area is, closer to the equator, the more the heat can spread out over the whole space. But here's the one I want you to go away with. This is really fascinating. The warmer the air is, the more water vapor it can hold. Period. There's a curve of it for you nerds out there. That's an exponential going up. So more water vapor. So warmer air can travel farther before condensing, and warmer air holds heat. Moisture holds heat. The act of condensing it releases that heat. So we are bringing moisture up from the tropics and condensing it every time it rains, and that brings an enormous amount of heat. Do you notice what happened when it rained with the snow? The snow melted really fast, as opposed to just a warm air mass moving over. So it also causes more flooding, and that's a feature that I think pure science, it's really easy to understand, and we'll come back to that on migration space. And the opposite can happen. Warmer air holds more moisture, so that means things will evaporate faster. And it might mean less rain in some areas. So it can exacerbate droughts. This is my last pure science slide. This is Earth's average temperature. Notice the last two curves, 2023 and 2024. What looks wrong there? It jumped. And the reason for this is fairly well understood now. They think it's primarily due to worldwide shipping regulations that's made people made these big freight ships use cleaner fuels. It's called bunker oil with less sulfur in it. So less sulfur particulates going in the air. We were actually reflecting away a lot of the extra heat by having highly polluting freight traffic in the ocean. So we cleaned up our act. So should we have? Why was it a good idea to clean up that oil?
Do you think any of the jump in the last 2 years could be due to like massive increases in computing power and like large servers using a lot of energy?
We're using more energy, but when you do energy balances, it's like a gnat on an elephant. The sun is so powerful. The sun is the equivalent of a high-powered hairdryer per square meter when it's shining. Now you spread that all over the entire planet, and you talk about the energy we're producing, and it's insignificant. Same example holds with like wind power. If we tried to extract everything we could, we're doing it over 100 feet, 200 feet of a blade, and then the atmosphere is miles high. Mm-hmm. Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. Especially where we're in the ports.
You talk about migration. I mean, there's places in the world you can't breathe, especially in India.
Absolutely. And port cities have some of the worst air quality in the world. So thank you, Frank, for bringing me back on topic. All right, now we're gonna get more into that's it for science, but we'll come back to some of these concepts. This is put out by the National NOAA, National I always forget with Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which has been one of the areas the federal government severely curtailed recently under the new administration. But what we're looking at here is 2024 $1 billion weather and climate disasters, and they always CPI adjust it. There is controversy among climate denialists about how valuable this data is. There's no controversy among pure science. Illinois has 7 tornadoes. That was we made the map back in February of 2024, and Hurricane Helene hit. I'll be coming back to that one. But this is a more interesting one. The color plot that you see, the bar graph going up like that, that's number of events. And then the dollar sign is connected to the red lines there. You see it? Katrina, $300 billion. Harvey and Irma, $500 billion. Those numbers are so big we have trouble digesting them. Let's put it in perspective. What's our federal spending? 6.75 trillion. So FEMA's budget is actually 1%, or should have been 1% in 2025. I don't know what they did with the cuts of our entire federal budget. Yet the cost of some of these events are approaching high fractions of our entire expenditure. So we're already spending an enormous amount of money responding to billion-dollar events. We're not counting the $100 million events. These are billion-dollar events. And we're not counting the events we all suffer for when our basements flood, or our tree falls down on our deck, which happened to me, or all that, those don't count. Those are small events. So weather is already costing us a fortune. Now I'm back. Now I'm going to go. The rest of the talk, we're going to be on the migration theme. This was all backdrop. And what I like about the approach I'm taking here is we don't have to debate attribution science. You can think about it because it's easy to try to debate. Oh, the weather's always changing, or hurricanes. Look at 2025. We had hardly any hurricanes. Wrong. We just didn't hit. We had plenty of hurricanes. They didn't hit America. So I'm going to take a couple examples of how significant damage can be of a climate-connected event, and then think about what it would be like to live like that in a place that gets hit. All right, it's easier for me to look here. Hurricane Helene, this was 2024. Remember, it hit Florida really badly, and then to everybody's surprise, who got hit the hardest?
North Carolina.
North Carolina, Asheville. Does everybody here remember what the famous weatherman story was about 40 years ago? What's the best place to live in America from a weather standpoint? Asheville, North Carolina. Not anymore. There's northern Florida, a picture of northern Florida. When you see destruction like that, and like we saw in Asheville, there's Asheville. That's not the same as a flood like we experienced in the Chicago area, or what the Northwest is experiencing today. Some of that's happening in the areas where the rivers are flowing fast enough, you're getting houses washed away. That's a climate migration event. This is a climate migration event. These areas will not be the same. You know, a couple feet of water in your basement, or even ruining a lot of stuff, is not the same thing as these massive events. In North Carolina alone, they talked about, in terms of interim needs, $60 billion. A small fraction of the victims had insurance for the type of loss. Georgia was hit in the same thing. 2% of Georgians had flood insurance, and 126,000 homes were damaged. The economic loss, $250 million. And we're all paying for that. And,
Quarter of a trillion, really, right?
You're
saying
when you add it all up, oh yeah, when you add up all these, we're in the trillions now. Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is, 250 billion is $250 billion.
$250 billion, yes. Did I say that? What did I say?
You said billion.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. It's just crazy. It's crazy amount. Again, it's the amount of money. It's hard to get our arms around. And we don't even think about this in terms of migration. But these people aren't moving back. A lot of them, now Asheville's back, but not all of it. The ones that got really, really damaged, no, that takes years. And a lot of people don't come back. 2 weeks later, Hurricane Milton hit in Florida, another Category 3. A lot of people killed. The topic I'll be coming heavily back to. Many low-risk areas were considered low-risk inland that flooded. Nobody had insurance, no flood insurance. So if you don't have flood insurance and your house is a complete loss, what do? You go somewhere else until you can rebuild, or if you can afford it. But if you didn't have insurance, you're stuck with a mortgage. You got nothing. Now, let's switch gears and look at the other type of another opposite type of event. Too hot. The LA fires. It's hard to believe this was this year. Doesn't it seem like it was like a year ago? This was January 2025. Scientists said that the dryness of the LA area was off the charts. They had not seen humidity levels in the environment at that level for that long before. This is attribution science. Again, what I'm saying, what I'll be talking about today, you don't even have to talk about it. Just the damages are climate related. Insurance costs are estimated to be another $250 million. That's just insurance costs. That's not everybody. All this isn't covered by insurance. So this is just a note on some of the damage. The Palisades fires and Eaton fires in California, 17,000 structures. 17,000 structures? How many structures are there in Wheaton? Sounds about right. Naperville's a little bigger. That's a town gone, big town. 28 people dead, second most expensive fire in history, another $250 million $250 billion, another 1% of GDP, just for one series of events. And this is this is a picture from only a couple months ago. That's what it looks like now in a lot of areas. A lot of these areas, they had to slow down on rebuilding because there's so much plastic melted, and you had other undesirable elements. So the cleanups actually had a schedule in that one picture. Let's look back in the past. What happened when these same kind of events happened several years ago? This was Paradise, California, before November 18th, 2018. This was the largest fire in California history. Kind of a nice town. It's a mountain town, northwestern California. That's the same type of pictures, like the day after the fire, a couple days after the fire. 85 people died, 153,000 acres. It's again, unimaginable. Another $16.5 billion in damage. I believe that was in 2018 dollars. This is 5 years later, 2025. The population was 20. This is what's illustrative about migration. 26,000 town now. 7 years later, 11,000 people in the town. That's migration. It's indisputable. It's climate migration. It's migration due to the fire. Let's look at a hurricane, Katrina. That's one of my favorite slides. 1.5 million people evacuated, 3 states. 40% never returned. 40%. You don't think about that. New Orleans is still a great place. You know, I love the culture. I love visiting there. The 2020 census is down 100,000 from 2000. Majority who lost their homes were African Americans. Is that fair? Absolutely not. Why? Well, they probably didn't afford insurance. They lived in the less desirable areas. Many didn't and can't return because what happens when you can't return, you can't afford to return, somebody else buys your property and they do something else with it. So this was before, there's after, and it's a nice little college dormitory or residence for some people who aren't of color. My view is it's better than leaving it as, you know, abandoned, but this is so typical of what happens in emergencies. Yeah.
I have family in East Tennessee and Western North Carolina in the same process of, you know, the people who are moving in now are, it's gentrification, like housing costs are going way up because of it and everything. Yeah.
Gentrification is the perfect word for it. And when I gave this talk the first time, I was asked to attend a 3-day seminar on climate migration that was focused entirely on justice. And there was example after example all over the world, actually, where especially beachfront property, like in Florida, are the real nice areas that are higher up. They're heavily populated by lower income people, and then now they're gentrified. Now they're really nice places for people with money to live. So thanks for that comment. Okay, so we've talked about fires and floods. Let's look at a couple other ones just briefly. Changing coastlines and rains and floods. Oops. What'd I do? There it is. There's a million ways of looking at what areas of the country are vulnerable to flooding. I've dived into this heavily. It is very complicated. This is just showing a risk ranking of vulnerability to sea level rise. And why is it complicated? Because it's not pure sea rise that counts. It's what happens during storms. It's what happens during low pressure events coupled with high tides during moderate storms. Everything changes. You get you get saltwater intrusion, you get flooding, temporary flooding, and you find all along the Carolina coast, and even further, you have areas that are now, I don't think I have a slide on that, but this is a different slide. You have areas that the saltwater is intruded upwards of half a mile to a mile, and the trees are dying. The whole coast is dying. Something else will grow there eventually that can tolerate salt, maybe. So these areas are not only just vulnerable, this is what's happening. This is, I believe, an example of 2 streets worth of houses where people said, I love being in North Carolina, Outer Banks beaches. They're fabulous. I'm going to keep living here. I'm going to rebuild on stilts, and I'm going to overbuild it, and I'm going to keep living here. Didn't happen. The storms, the higher tide, the higher wind velocities, they're still taking them out, 2 streets worth. This is nice areas. Picture people who don't have money living in these kinds of areas that are vulnerable. Here's a similar thing going on in California. This is San Clemente, a beautiful town south of LA. Coastal erosion from atmospheric rivers. Atmospheric rivers are happening today on the northwest coast.
Can you quickly define that atmospheric river?
Yeah, atmospheric river is just a weather event. It's a high amount of humidity in the air, enough to form rain, a lot of rainfall, and the way the atmosphere is moving, the normal movement from west to east is being hit with the cold air masses from up north. And right at that point, there's 32 degrees or colder, or warmer, excuse me. There's a different point where where rain happens as a function of how much water is in the air. And of course, what's making atmospheric, why is atmospheric rivers worse? My science slides, right? Heck of a lot more with warmer air, heck of a lot more water in that warmer air. So atmospheric rivers are happening more frequently, and they're worse. And we're seeing it happen. And unfortunately, it doesn't stop things like droughts, Maybe the area that have droughts, the same thing could happen. They could get an atmospheric river and flood out everything, or they get nothing. Another kind of fun picture. Imagine living there. It's supposed to, I'll tell you what, I had a friend in the LA area. The housing up in those hilltops, it's just gorgeous. If you could withstand the danger. Even more triggers. Lake Mead, 2023, long-term Arizona drought. We've all heard about it. It's an existential dilemma. One example was 600 homes in Scottsdale a couple of years ago. They just got cut off. We have water allocation standards. They had to truck their water in. They've been looking at multi-billion-dollar projects like desalination, but we're in a long-term drought. You can actually go to this website and look every single day, and the numbers change, but the darker the color and the bigger you see the L for long-term, the worse off we are. So the whole Colorado River basin, which is all the way up in here, flows all the way down this way and out to the sea, and then has tributaries that come out this way. It's too dry. And what are people doing about it? Nothing. They can't figure it out. They're still taking the water, and it's a one-way trip. Anybody heard what's happening in Tehran, Iran? The city has sunk almost a foot. It was sitting on water. It's sitting on what do you want to call that? Subsurface water, and it's all drained. They have to move. They've got like less than a decade, or there was no water. This is part of what's happening there. And my favorite, or one of my favorite climate organization, NOAA, did a study last year. Heat is driving the droughts. Maybe the rainfall might actually be comparable, especially since a lot of that's mountain rainfall, but it's too hot. And what happens with hot air? More moisture, can hold more moisture, so it's sucking it out of the ground. That's another cool picture, 112 degrees. And this was in Phoenix last year. Heat-related deaths. I don't like the shape of that curve, do you? I try to do more research on it, and it's a common theme on something that's politically unacceptable. The research dries up. The government agency, the state agencies that did these things, well, we're going to change how we count heat-related deaths. I literally tried to find the same website. Data is not comparable. They decided to use different codes. But Arizona I believe did pass laws requiring water breaks for workers, et cetera. This is a fun slide. You want to leave Arizona when it gets too hot? Don't come here. That was, where was that? Maine? Yeah, that's another common theme. But I want to get on here, what about us? 2023, remember that? The smoke? My second home was up in here. And I remember driving home when it finally cleared in Wisconsin. I drove back to Illinois, and it was even worse. And this isn't very long ago. Worst air quality in the world. I have asthma, and I have pretty strong allergies. I had a mask on, like PM 2.5 mask on, inside my house until I realized I had to close the windows. This is a 2020 event. I'm just going to go quickly on this, but let me just give you the bottom line. When we talk about probability of rainfall in Illinois, we use historical data by law. It's called the probability of rainfall. They call it a 100-year flood. It's really not a 100-year flood. It's 1% probability per year. There's a big difference in those if you're a statistician or a mathematics nerd. That number in general in northern Illinois was 5.8 inches in 1961 for the 100-year flood, 7.58 inches in 1989, 8.57 inches in 2019. What does that mean? That means if your house was built into what was considered not in a floodplain, might be now. This is an example in Hinsdale area off of Ogden Avenue. Unfortunately, the slide I stole from, they've got time backwards. That's the old floodplain on the right, and that's the new one on the left, and it's developed. And here's another one in Wheaton, just south of Roosevelt Road, very close to here. That's what it looked like. The houses looked like in 2004. That was considered safe. Those houses flood routinely now. And February tornadoes, remember that? We had 11 of them in 2024 in February. We've had 8 since 1950 in February, and we had 11 last year. And what else happened? We had double number of the usual tornadoes last July. And now I come on my favorite topic. What happened to State Farm? 27% rate increase. That's massive. Severe damage, just storm damage, hail and floods. Well, hail and rain. All right, property insurance.
Can I ask,
Yeah, go ahead.
do they nationalize those insurance rates? Are we paying 27% because of problems in Illinois? Are we paying 27%?
The insurance
nationwide?
industry will tell you absolutely not. The people one level outside the insurance industry will say it's extremely complicated. And the answer is yes, everybody pays for everybody else's for 2 reasons. One is the FEMA is nationalized tax, and FEMA, especially on flood things, the rules have been too lax for too long, and they're catching up. But the reinsurance market is a single market, and the reinsurance market, everybody's paying for that. So that's the short answer. Yeah, and I'm not an agent. I'm ignorant in this, other than what I've been reading for the last 2 years. But this is actually. Let me let my cat out of the bag. I believe property insurance and related issues are going to become so bad that it's going to force action, even for people who say, I don't believe it. And why? You can't deny it. What happens if State Farm raises our property insurance 27%? You have a choice. Take it or leave it. Exactly. And I get into that. Where are property being dropped? Look at that. Those are fire regions on the left. This is an older slide, but look at Florida. And this is just non-renewal rates. State Farm, because they were using science, they said, you know what, this area is getting really dry in Southern California. We better get the heck out of here. And they did. And they were right. And they got out and they saved their butts. So what's happening in the states where they're having property insurance problems? They have they passed laws coming up with insurance of last resort. California is called the FAIR Plan. And the number of customers in 5 years almost tripled. It's basic coverage only, fire, smoke, and lightning, and the whole state's liable. So what happens if they run out of money? They can't charge what it's worth exactly, because then nobody can buy it again anyway. So they make the whole state liable for it. So if you live in California and this happened, all insurance rates is the way they did it. The states can do it differently. All insurance rates got it. So car insurance, life insurance, all the rates went up because of that.
I was wondering about, I saw a documentary about Southern California after the fire.
Yeah.
And they were saying people were rushing to get the permit to rebuild before the state implemented guidelines or requirements for the fire
For new,
technologies to prevent the fire.
yeah, new building codes. Yeah, building code adoption is local. There's national organizations that set standards that, like you call them stretch codes, they call them, like what the ideal code. And then states vary on requiring adoption, and then counties also have a say in it, and then even down to the municipalities. So it's very complicated. In California, I'm sure that's the thing that could be happening. But why would you want to build something that's just as susceptible, Well, in one sense, the fire there is much less likely because they burned everything, but it'll come back. A lot of that was brush fire, that brush. And it gets into the stuff I'm sure Mark was talking about, the Fix Our Forest Act and what CCL is working on. But I'm going fast now because I want to get to the punchline. I'm pretty much in the punchline now, but I've got a lot of really cool evidence. So this is another audience participation. Right now, where do you think the rates in the country are the absolute highest for the same property value?
Yeah, I was gonna guess either California or somewhere like Gulf Coast or something where there's a lot of flooding.
Think of number one, and what do you think number two is? You're going to be shocked.
I would think they'd try to go to places that have money, right?
The rates, yeah. Right now, the rates in Florida, I don't know if I can hardly read that. This is Insurify. What's that? 15,000, I believe that says.
My son pays 13 for his house in New Orleans. 13,000.
Yeah, Louisiana is very high. Notice that? Number one, Florida. Number two, Louisiana. Number three, Oklahoma. How about that? And look at those rates. How do you afford that? This is single-family home rates. If you go to government websites from Florida, you will see radically different numbers, because they will say, well, this is what the rate is for the average $300,000 house in Florida. Who has a $300,000 house in Florida? Nowhere near the coast, I guarantee you. They've got condominiums that go for over $1 million everywhere. So these are single-family home rates, and this is Insurify.com. Yeah.
What is it about Michigan and Illinois that make them so much higher than?
We're not higher.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
We're not higher.
I saw the blue and I thought it was.
It's just their color scheme isn't that fancy. I put Illinois on there. We are at roughly 3,000 and 3,400, and that seems high to me because I'm not paying that, and I've got a nice house.
Those
go ahead.
insurance rates are not to rebuild your house. You never get the full value, right?
You can get it. Yeah.
You can get it, but can you afford it?
Yeah, my brother-in-law is an insurance agent, and we have replacement value. And it paid off. Actually, we had hail during the derecho 5 years ago. I remember that. I live in Glen Ellen. We just got hit. It was like 2 blocks wide. Everything, we got hammered. My siding was dented everywhere. It was aluminum. And now I've got the concrete siding. But anyway, Oklahoma shocked me. And there's a citywide, it's crazy. Whoever said you have to have money, you're absolutely right. You got to have money to have insurance. And so what's happening? People don't buy insurance. And if you're trying to buy a house, you can't buy it. You need insurance. So this is a slide for people who want the deck. Florida property insurance is very tricky. They're making things sound like everything's okay, but you have to buy the insurance. You are allowed to go to their Citizens Property Insurance of last resort by the state of Florida if you can't get a policy. But once you're on it, if any company, and I'm talking about companies that exist for 6 months, this is happening every year in Florida, they come in and say, okay, we'll take this market, we can be competitive here. But if they come within 20% of what the Citizens charges for the state, you are required by law to take that policy. And these companies are just, what they're doing is they're spreading their risk out and they're raising the rates to the point where they can make money. And that's the key in an area like Florida. Don't put a lot in the same zip code. Spread it out. You're going to get hit, but not every part of Florida will get hit. And so the aggregate is what the numbers we saw, big numbers. But the market has stabilized, and the governor will tell you it's a great place, come back to Florida. And they don't even require flood insurance. Here's another one, another fun one that they don't talk about very much. That same law that required people to buy anybody else private insurance if it came available, it's called DOE. It says any disputes go to the Department of Administrative Hearings, and you're bound to that if you have property insurance there. And the homeowners are bound by the process, and they lose. What does it say? 90% of the cases they lose. So they say, oh, I was flooded. It was a flood. No, we don't think so. There's a game going on there. I don't like it. This is another one that I don't like. This was Florida Chamber of Commerce. Look at the date. This was 2024, using 2023 data. I've been trying to update this. This is 2025, and there is no new data. People are leaving. The data is coming from 2 different moving companies, Pods, and one of the big movers. They're saying, yeah, a lot of people are leaving. The state of Florida is not publicizing that data anymore, and why not? I think Florida is an awesome place to visit and golf and go to Disney parks. The average age of people leaving is age 32. This one is a new poll. This was done by a university, and I was surprised. 80% are worried about housing affordability. I'm sure 10 years ago that number was far smaller. 50% of all Floridians are considering leaving, and 26 seriously considering leaving. And I know people in this room. I know, Mark, you know one. You know Jan. She knows people that are leaving Florida for the same reason. And that's a graph from our CCL friend, Dana, showing the red is auto insurance, the green, it looks like really huge numbers. That's like 10% to 20% above the 3% or 4% inflation rate over those years. That's how much more property insurance was going up. Bottom line, in previous 5 years, 34% rise nationwide. That's not that bad. It's worse in other areas. And
why is auto insurance so much higher than home insurance on the
good question. Why do you think? You got it. Flooding. Yeah. There was one picture I saw. I forget what state it was. An entire Tesla parking lot. It must have been 1,000 cars. They all got flooded at the same time. That's a loss. Or they refurbish them. So nobody's safe from rate increase. Yeah, it's floods and hail damage. This is one prediction from my friend Abraham Lustgarten, the New York Times writer. This is a prediction of 2055. where home values may decline strictly because of insurance. Just insurance. And the insurance is decoupled right now from flooding, from sea level rise. And so Mark and other any climate mavens know if we were to fix climate change today, right now, net zero means no new greenhouse gases. We stabilized at CO2 and methane at the level it is. What would happen to sea level rise?
It will continue to go
going.
up. Yeah.
It's too hot. So this doesn't even count that. Look at that. See that dark red there along some areas? That's 100%. That means the houses don't exist. This is another favorite way of looking at it. This was pre-pandemic to just the beginning of this year. Brown means maybe decreased supply of housing. Blue means maybe too many houses were built or nobody wants to live there anymore. When you read about this stuff, they minimize a lot of, depending on who you're reading from. If you read from a company called First Street, which is a nonprofit working on climate change, giving input to insurers and anybody who wants it, they look at the climate aspect of this and they're saying, yeah, a lot of this is climate. And look at where the brown stuff parts are. That's where the climate is not as impacted. There's a more newer one, looking more at a county level. Same thing. We do have a housing shortage here. Nationally, house prices have collapsed this last couple weeks. Not here, as you all know. Our house prices keep going up because we are short. So that's a big part of it. But this is I'm almost done. This is a report put out by a bipartisan Senate committee right at the end of the Biden administration, exactly a year ago. Look in the bold, we could be looking at a systemic shock to the economy similar to the financial crisis of 2008, if not greater, property insurance and more inability to get mortgages, and entire segments of America along the coast or wherever they're hit, unbuildable, and so massive loss of wealth. This is Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. This was a week ago. He came back from the Conference of Parties in Belém, Brazil. That's Fed Chair Powell. He's got a slide up there. Fed Chair Powell, the hero that got us through the pandemic, in my view, with our money policy. 10 or 15 years, regions of the country where you can't get a mortgage. Did anybody hear him say that? I didn't, and I watch the Business Channel for an hour a day. Every single morning I watch it, and I didn't hear that. There's Sheldon Whitehouse repeating it, and he's saying the same things we've been saying. You can't get a mortgage. And you're hearing this from finance community, not from environmentalists. I love Sheldon Whitehouse. He's actually come to CCL meetings in Washington, and he's talked to us. And here's another side note. First Street, they calculate climate risk. I'm not sure exactly how their business model works. They take public computer models that have information that is so fine-grained you can't use it, and they make it usable. They're talking about 55 million Americans likely to voluntarily relocate, and they estimate that was 5.2 million this year. Did anybody ever hear of that happening? No. And I think if we had a different president right now, you'd probably be hearing more of this. So what are we hearing? We're hearing the opposite. There's another one, another article from earlier this year, New Republic. UK actuaries, not subject to any political pressure, are saying we're not taking into account potential more worst case events happening, tipping points, things going a little faster than we think, which is actually kind of what's happening. And economists tend to ignore that, but they think we've severely underestimated the potential costs of global warming. And that's it. I have a lot more stuff, but we don't have time. But I'm here as long as you can stand it. For any more questions, my favorite question is the first two. first three, but
Right, we'll take questions, and I just ask to try to talk into the microphone so people listening at home on YouTube channel can hear. So I'll try to get the microphone to you and hold it close to your lips.
I mean, I can start with, should we be focusing on adaptation? Mitigation means let's cut greenhouse gases. Well, we're kind of giving up on that, at least temporarily. Anybody's thoughts?
It even seems like Citizens Climate Lobby is
Yeah.
backing off on mitigation and
Well,
adaptation.
the Citizens Climate Lobby will do whatever we think we have a reasonable chance of passing without jeopardizing the political career of our members of Congress.
Mhm.
That's basically it. We're trying to provide cover for them, and we have done it on the Fix Our Forests Act. They've said that. There's two people. Yeah. No, go ahead. One of you. Yeah.
Hi, do I feel safe here? Yes, but I know it is an illusion. I'm very aware of that. I mean, comfortable, we got good water, we got good air, we don't get major floods. But I know it's just a matter of time, and when it happens, it's going to happen fast. So
Yeah.
that's my feeling about it. It's a false happy time right now, and we're just lucky right now.
Yeah, I applaud your thinking generationally, because we're of similar ages. I have the mindset that I don't think of my grandchildren any more than I do of the rest of humanity, what we're doing to ourselves. I have the same level of empathy, even though I love my grandchildren more. But yeah, in terms of right now, where is it safe to live? I have some really interesting slides. We don't have time to see on that, but we're in a good spot. We're not subject to the same level, but we are subject to two extreme things that are a danger to lives. Anybody any idea what those two big ones? Mm-hmm. Yeah, storms, and what's the other one? Heat. Yeah, but we also have a lot of electricity. But yeah, we have air conditioning, but it's heat. Yeah, but we can, those are mitigatable. You know what I mean? We can manage those. The other parts of the country, like Phoenix, at some point, the water or the heat will get you.
Do you see any significant impact coming on the Great Lakes? And as part of that, is the Great Lakes Water Alliance of the surrounding states strong enough to control?
Yeah, my expertise is zero. I'm an energy guy and a nuclear guy, but I've seen people worrying about that. I think because of the Great Lakes, it's one of the most important resources on the planet. And at some point, if we're trying to feed, a big chunk of America from that water, it is a threat. But I think we have to be more careful in terms of pollution, managing salt runoff and things like that, and invasive species. But near-term future, the Great Lakes is a massive mitigator. I mean, it's preventing the drought for us.
With all the migration that we're starting to see, I guess I'm wondering, do you think it's possible, and what would it take to use all that migration as an opportunity to address some of the causes, meaning getting people, getting us away from sprawling single-family home subdivisions that are all car-based towards more medium density?
Do you listen to Volt's podcast by Dave Roberts?
No, I don't.
He is huge on this theme. A climate-friendly future would have us living in more urban-like environments without cars. I wish it would. I don't see any signs of it yet, but I wish it would. But there are examples of cities like Seattle that are thinking that way. We have another. Anybody on this side? This side's been quiet. I'm guilty of looking this way because my screen's over there.
Talking about the water in Lake Michigan, I used to think, there's a lot of fresh water there, but apparently there is a treaty with Canada about how low the lake levels can go. before the locks and commerce with the ships
Sure.
is impacted. So
Yeah,
now-
but the water level, my recollection is it's still high right now. But that, the long-term trends, it's too hard to say because the same temperature rise that can bring us more rain can also take it away really fast. And that's exactly what's happening. All the extremes are accelerated. Another
One thing that concerns me, I think, is maybe similar to what Ray was saying, is that there's this feeling that there's a group that maybe takes advantage of these things, right? That once, the way to get gentrification into an area, the way to make money, people are making money off of these things, and they have no vested interest in solving these problems because there's money to be made. And maybe, I don't know how callous and unfeeling I am by thinking that, or how callous and unfeeling they are by actually implementing it. But it's an impression at least, and I don't know if there's data that backs that
There
up.
absolutely is data. The percentage of homes, single-family homes being bought by investors is radically rising. I just read it yesterday. I didn't make a slide on it. My brain is getting too old to remember numbers like that, but if I put it in a PowerPoint presentation, then I kind of have it locked in. But it was huge. It's at least doubled in 10 years, the amount of single-family homes being owned by investors. And one of the big things that happened, and happens all over, is they buy enough of an area where they can just knock them all down and build something else. High-density housing would be great, but not everybody wants to live next to high-density housing.
When I heard the topic for this seminar, my immediate thought went to international migration. Much of what you said here has been talked about national. And I mean, if you look at some of the problems we're having here, it's because people can't live where they are now because the climate is causing the economic problems, which is causing the human problems. And my brother owns an AR-15 because he's in northern Wisconsin and he thinks the world's going to tear down his house. And I wonder if Canada's got 20% of the world's fresh water, or is it 80%? It's got some huge
It's a big number. It's a big number.
huge percentage of fresh water in the world. Plus, it's cold up there. And I'm wondering, is Canada going to start building a nuclear bomb to defend itself? I mean, that would be the place ultimately people are going to want to go.
This is Climate Migration 3.2. 1.0, my first presentation, like I said, I was asked by an assistant pastor to talk about climate migration, and I didn't talk about the U.S. It was strictly on America, what you're describing. What we're seeing here is 1/10 the impact of what we're seeing elsewhere. Myanmar, the Middle East, especially South Asia. Some of these areas, like the saltwater intrusion I've talked about, and the sea level rise, they have the same thing going on too. They're getting like New Orleans area is sinking, and I'm not sure, it's complicated. It's not just using groundwater; it's just sinking, and the sea level rise is higher in parts of the Gulf of Mexico than it should be, because it's trapping warm water, and warm water expands. So there's two phenomena going on, and then there's also weather phenomena pushing water, in one area or another, causing rise that didn't used to be there. And that's all going on right now in other parts of the world. And then in Central Africa, you've got a famine. You've got absolute famine. Somalia and other countries, Congo, due to lack of rain on their crops. So worldwide migration is massive, and that's what's frustrating, because we're all in this together. I'm sure your beliefs match mine 100% on that. We're all on one planet. We all breathe the same air. We all drink the same water. We all are exactly the same inside, and we should be loving each other as much as we love our families. And it makes me cry at times. Literally cry. When I saw the election, I pictured all these people dying, and I didn't picture USAID being cut, where you're intentionally putting people to death. I don't get it. And there's enough billionaires out there that could offset all that, and only a couple of them are doing it. But yeah, I share your concern, and I chose this because we can understand it. And what you did is extrapolate perfectly, you know. Yeah.
My house is on its own individual well water.
Mhm.
It's unincorporated Winfield. Would that be considered now a danger or a plus?
The well water is well beyond my expertise, but I know that the villages, mine included Glen Ellen, 30 years ago knew we had to work our way off of it. The aquifer was drying up, and you're not capable of digging to the same level that a village can, although you could with some expense. And I would assume that because Wheaton and the Collier counties going east have all gone to the Lake Michigan water, that helps keep your water safe. But in terms of drinkability, that's another issue. There's, you got all kinds of issues to worry about.
I live right around the corner. I have my water tested every couple of years.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Take shorter showers, Bev.
Is it well water? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and our second home is in south central Wisconsin, and our water is pristine. I've tested myself, and other than the nitrates are horrible. And the nitrates are from the farms, the runoff, and it goes right down. And we happen to live in an area where there's like little small river deltas, whatever you want to call it. They're what do you call those little when they go snaking around? So we got a really high water table. That's the lake. We have a man-made lake. It's just sand. You only have to dig down like 20 feet, and you can build your own beach. But that water is full of nitrates, and it's gotten better. They've tightened up the standards in Wisconsin dramatically, and you don't see the algae blooms on the reservoir lakes like you did even 10 years ago. The algae blooms are less, even though it's warmer. So it's gotten better.
I know one of the CCL talks we had a few years back mentioned, hundreds of years ago, if there was a problem in your area and the water wasn't there or wasn't good, you could move your village 100 feet up a hillside or something like that.
I love that.
Sometimes they're doing that now. There's a lot of things going on along the Aleutian Island chain and so on, things that are occurring there that are forcing communities to move and change, and Pacific Islands and things like that.
Yep.
But you can't move a city like Chicago very easily, or Phoenix, or anything like that.
They're going to move to Iran.
Yeah.
I love you brought that up. This is what I've used this in my previous talks, but I knew once we focus on insurance, it's too difficult. But this is Abraham Lustgarten again quoted this. This was a paper from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. You don't get any more peer reviewed than that to make it in there. This is studying where humans lived over the last 6,000 years without the benefit of the last 100 years of our ability to live in uninhabitable areas. And over those 6,000 years, they only used two variables to decide what was habitable and what was not, and what was best: water and temperature. If you had too little water, it was considered uninhabitable. And then this is 6,000 of our race, our DNA, doing this, where we lived. And too little water, it's uninhabitable. Too much water, same thing. Too hot, too cold, same thing. That region there in the dark green is considered the best, one of the best zones. All those little zones in there, you can kind of see them. They're all over. Notice how the mountains have green regions? That would obviously be temperature or rainfall. It could be either one, because mountains tend to attract rainfall also. But here's a projection. That's just under moderate emissions, which is what the path we're on, kind of. It shifted north, didn't it? I can't explain some of these little things, but, and there's a high emissions future. You were talking about Canada, great place to live. But a lot of Canada is still too cold, but it's, and Florida is not doing as badly as I thought, but again, this is not taking into account sea level rise. This is just temperature and temperature and water. That's how humans migrated in the past. So I think that's fascinating. And you can get down to, I have all kinds of county level data. This is showing what high tide's already doing. I've got a lot of this stuff. My favorite one is GDP. It's off the map negative. And this was done 5 years ago. Things have accelerated in the last 5 years. So I
there's
would say this is worse
concerns.
now. Yeah,
A lot of concerns.
Again, this is just us. We can understand this, and environmental justice. We can understand our country a lot better than we can understand the rest of the world, but it's happening everywhere. And my first migration talk focused heavily on Central America and why people are leaving. And those same poor people now are being shoved back to where they came from, where they may not have, where there's no jobs, there's crime in the cities. They sold their land, little land they had to get out, to make money to get out, and now they don't even have that. And they're stuck. Thankfully, Mexico is doing, the economy is doing well. They can absorb a lot of people. They're a lot friendlier to their neighbors than we are.
Well, Tom, you've put a lot of effort and work and study into this, and sharing it with us is very much appreciated. We thank you so much for your interest in it and the work you're doing. CCL always deserves a lot of commendation for the types of effort and types of motivation they put into people like Mark and you to get involved and try to make the world a better place. So thank you very much for coming and sharing.
I really appreciate the opportunity. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, but I'm an energy nerd, and especially when it comes to nuclear. And you notice I didn't even talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I don't need to.
You moderated yourself.
No.
All right, thank you. Remember, Science Sunday, January 4th, will be at 11:15, same as this time, too. They're one service at the church, so we'll have it right after their service. 11:15 on January 4th. Topics in 2025, science topics. Yeah, the next time we'll be talking about topics in science, 2025. Yeah, what's of interest, what is importance. Scott and I kind of get to pick our highlights of the year. Yeah.